that we have talked about these three counterclaim statements. Please describe how this has impacted you.
These statements are used over and over and over and over again online to reverberate, re-echo, and re-energize.
Objection, Your Honor. This is not responsive. Lack of foundation and hearsay.
She gets to give her consent for it.
Well, her emotional, the question was, what your emotional impact of these statements?
Okay.
The impact it has on me is every time I look at it, which is every day. I am set back. I have to relive it. I have to have the worst, most painful things I've ever gone through, painful memories I've ever had, the things I've narrowly survived at times, embarrassing, intimate details that I never wanted to be known, never wanted to be public ever, and to have them used every single day to call me a liar. I have to relive this every single day that I have to address those claims. Over and over again, the most intimate, embarrassing, deeply humiliating and personal things that I've survived are used against me every day, over and over again. It's torture. I'm in so much pain, emotionally. I just wanted him to leave me alone. I wanted to move on with my life. And he won't let me. By making statements like this, he won't let me. I have to be here today. I have to be reliving it every single time. He, with these statements, with these leaks, these comments, once again, makes me have to speak to the most horrifying things I have lived through. It's torture. It's torturous. Why don't you have to do that? I want to move on with my life. I have a baby. I want to move on. I want to move on. I want Johnny to move on too. Mom, leave me alone.
So that was really the most powerful testimony that Amber Heard left this jury with. Ann Bremner, she's an attorney in Seattle, a trial attorney. She's seen witnesses come and go. How would you rank this witness and her performance?
Well, I mean, in her second go-around, I'd rate her really high, probably an 8 to a 10. I mean, she was believable in the angst she's going through. I mean, think of this is like something like so far out there that you're a victim, you're an alleged victim in a sexual assault case or abuse case, you know, whether it's your family or a stranger, and you become vilified all over the world. Memes about you. Everyone thinks you're a liar. Everyone, like, says horrible things to you. I mean, think about her life. You really heard that right there. I mean, she really stepped up in that last piece, I think, and told the jury, you know, what's really happening to her. One other thing, Michael, I thought it was a mistake for her team to go into all of the internet rankings and numbers that showed hoax or, you know, whatever else, because then the jury knew that everyone hates her on the internet. But then, you know, cat's out of the bag so that she can come in the second piece in her testimony and reiterate, you know, how terrible it's been. But had they not put that in, I'm not sure if I would have had her go as far as she did in the second piece. But she did a good job.
Yeah, that is very interesting, and you know, as we know now, the internet and the social media factor plays a role in any case, and maybe more so in a case where defamation's involved. Mark Weaver, what's your best guess on where this jury goes based on the question we've already seen, which really, to me, could open up a can of worms with the three statements in the special verdict form? They came back with a question about the first one, which references specifically physical violence. Where does that take this jury? What's your best guess?
The more jury trials I prosecute, the less willing I am to guess how a jury is going to come out. As a young litigator, boy, I had lots of opinions about what jurors were going to do, but the more cases I have, the less willing I'm to do that. I will say this, and the viewers might find this interesting. There was almost certainly a strategy in this counterclaim. Because if it had simply been a plaintiff's case against Amber Heard and she had to defend it, that's one case. But for her to bring another case, twice the amount, $100 million, right? For her to bring her own counterclaim raises the possibility that the jury might in fact say, you know what, both of you lose, go away.
Yeah.
So as, in a sense, it was a bit of an offense that was a defense by bringing that $100 million counterclaim.
Yeah, that's the oh yeah lawsuit. You know, you're suing me for 50 million. Oh yeah, I'm suing you for 100 million. It just it does smack of just kind of a statement being made without any foundation. Hey, I'm gonna have to thank and excuse both of you. Mark Weaver, thank you so much. He's in the hood here in the boroughs, and Brebner in Seattle. Of course, you got Space Needle, you've got the Underground Tour, you got Pikes Market, you got Ann Bremner. You go to Seattle, those are the wonders of Seattle. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next time.
Next time.
Okay, guys, we'll take a quick break here, come back. Obviously, the clock's still ticking on the jury deliberations, past 8 hours now, and we got a lot to talk about. They've been at it for 6 weeks. Right back to Law and Crime and the Depp trial right after this.
question is, does question number 3, the statement is false, pertain to the headline, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath, or does it pertain to the content of the statement, everything written in the op-ed? So I think the confusion came in this particular one because the statement in question is the title of the op-ed. So I think they're just confused as whether it's the whole op-ed or just the title is the statement. And it's clear that the title is the statement. So I was going to answer to say the title is the statement in question for number 3. Does that seem appropriate to everybody?
So, is that enlightening? Is it more confusing? Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the afternoon session. I'm Michael Bryant. That's all we've heard from the jury so far today in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard deliberations into the 8th hour now. And that is actually question 1 in the jury verdict form, the special verdict form relating to Mr. Depp's case. We're going to get into questions 2 and 3 because it seems to me if they can't get a grip on question 1, 2 and 3 ain't going to be much easier. They all relate to other statements in the article that is the subject of the alleged defamation. So very fascinating. It is so interesting the way the mind of the jury members continues to work. So we have more insight into what's happening on the ground in Fairfax, Virginia. Stacey Delicat is there. She joins us live. Stacey, let's see, it's 4 o'clock East Coast time. Should be about as hot as it's ever going to get there today.
You know what? I was just going to say it's 4 o'clock. I think the sun went behind the clouds. I'm starting to feel we're getting into late afternoon. Maybe we're going to get a little cool down soon. I don't know. It's still sweltering out here. We're still sitting here in suspense waiting to hear what's going to happen. To your point about that question, yeah, I tend to agree with you. You know, that's the question on the first page of the special verdict form for Depp's case. And then there are 2 more statements that they have to go through to determine not just has Depp proven the elements of defamation, but was there, you know, actual malice behind the statements. So we'll see whether anything's going to happen today. I mean, the jury was back at 9 a.m. this morning. At this point, in total, we're stretching to almost 8 hours of deliberations. They had a short lunch break. By the way, a little bit of a news flash from our own Anjanette Levy. Apparently, for those who are wondering, the judge is not ordering lunch for the jurors. They are responsible for their own lunches. Some have brought lunch. Some have ordered box lunches. So in case you were wondering, and I bring it up because the judge has said and said last Friday, look, I don't order dinner, so when the jurors feel like it's time to wrap it up for the day and head home for dinner, that's when we're going to call it for the day. And that was almost at 5:30 on Friday. So perhaps it'll be around the same time today if they don't come to any kind of resolution. I also want to clarify one other point, Michael, which is that I've been saying, you know, we're going to get an hour's notice when the verdict comes in, and that will give time for not just all of the legal teams, but potentially the defendants themselves, whether they're here or not, to get here. Certainly any fans or looky-loos, as they say. But actually, our executive producer extraordinaire, Kathy Russin, clarified that the judge has said when the jury reaches a verdict, she will then have it read at the top of the next hour. So in other words, let's say a verdict comes in at 4:30. According to those rules, well, it would be read at 6. Or if it came in at 4:45, at 6. If it comes in earlier in the hour, I suppose she's going to wait till the top of the next hour as well. And that's, again, to give everyone who needs to be here time to get to the courthouse.
Well, that's perfectly unclear, and it was definitely not the impression given when we were first told what the rules were going to be. So that's a whole different animal. You could have 10 minutes notice then by that bizarre thinking. And I have to say, I'm outraged that there's no lunch paid for. I mean, come on. Anybody's going to try and get out of jury duty here. You can't even get a free lunch?
Right, exactly. If that's not a reason to wrap things up, what is? But a little surprising, but in all seriousness, you know, the jurors do still probably have a lot to go through. And so it remains anyone's guess, you know, but based on the fact that earlier today they were on question 1 still, we'll wait and see whether we get anything today before they call it for dinner.
Okay, boy, the jury brown bagging it. That is outrageous. Okay, thank you, Stacey. Appreciate it. And obviously, if something's going on down there, you got your finger on the pulse, and you will reach out to us, and we will throw you on immediately. Okay, thanks again. Appreciate it. So, you know, this special verdict form is so important. I really want to get into it with my guest. But before we do that,
Lisa did get a...
let's get into something that we've talked about before in this case as we've continued to relive it over the last few days. A main part of the trial has been all the audio and the video that's been presented. So once again, this is clearly one of my favorite pieces of video. Everything from the Richard Petty outfit that Johnny Depp is wearing to what appears to have been going on. Now, give me a little foreshadowing here. Johnny Depp at one point says, did anything happen to you? I don't think so. So something happened to him. Somebody made him mad. That led to the cabinet slamming. But was Amber Heard trying to just take advantage of that moment for her own purposes? Let's watch.
What happened? What happened? Nothing happened this morning, you know that?
Were you in here?
No.
So then nothing happened to you this morning?
Yeah, you're right. I just woke up and you were so sweet and nice. We were not even fighting this morning. All I did was say sorry.
Did something happen to you this morning? I don't think so.
No, that's the thing.
You want to see crazy? I'll give you crazy. That's crazy. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're crazy.
Have you drunk this whole thing this morning?
Oh, you got this going? You got this going?
I just started it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Really? See that?
No, didn't. You were smashing.
This is at your house in West Hollywood on Sweetser Avenue, correct?
That's correct, sir.
And that's you in the video, Mr. Depp, right?
That's correct, sir.
And you would agree that you were violent in that clip, correct?
Clearly I was having a bad time. I don't know what it was with regard to completely at this point, since I don't know the date, but being illegally recorded by your chosen other is, well, it's quite fitting with the rest of the photographs and tape recordings she made. So I thought what was most interesting is that she tried to hide it from me, and then that she laughed and smiled at the end. I thought that was the most interesting part myself. But so yes,
You didn't react.
I did assault a couple of cabinets, but I did not touch Miss Heard.
And
As you can see, I think, no.
And you may have been drunk in that video, correct?
There's a possibility of that, yes, sir.
You poured yourself a mega pint of red wine, correct?
A mega pint.
Yeah.
I poured myself a large glass of wine.
Right.
I thought it necessary.
Right.
Okay, so 16 ounces in a pint, mega pint, unclear at this point. I want to talk about this special verdict form because it gets back to not only the question from the jury earlier today, but also some potentially conflicting results, which might be kind of interesting. Luckily, to talk about this, I have Mitra Hurian here. She is an entertainment lawyer in Beverly Hills. And Jeff Lax is here. He's a law professor in the New York area. Thank you both for being here. I appreciate that. I want to talk about, and I'll go over the first three questions here just briefly because I think it's key in light of the jury's question. Their concern was with question number one, which says, in relating to the headline, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. That's the headline. That's the statement in the first page of the special verdict form. Okay, keep in mind, sexual violence. I spoke up against sexual violence. The second question relates to this statement. 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. and felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. Domestic abuse. So we go from violence to more generic abuse. And then the third one is, I have the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. Again, not physical or violence attached to that. It's possible, let me start with you, Mitra. They could say, yes, Johnny Depp has proven defamation as to the statement about sexual violence, but then they could say no, that he hasn't proven it as to the other abuse allegations that don't involve violence. Thoughts?
Sure. And, you know, the jury form says that if they say yes to one of those, they move on to the damages portion. So it is absolutely true that it could be yes to one and no to the other two. That is still defamation.
So I think their question, on the first question as to whether or not, Jeff, it is something they need to look at, as a separate statement versus in the context of the whole article, is maybe the whole ball game on the Johnny Depp side.
With regard to the first question, 100%. I think that question by the jury, you never know, why a jury asked. It could be one juror that wanted to know, so you don't really know what the consensus is. But yeah, definitely that question seems to favor Mr. Depp, because it seems like the jury's asking, do we have to prove that the whole thing is false, the whole article, or just that isolated statement about physical abuse? But like you said, the second question is still the general abuse allegation, with regard to whether that is true or false. That could be, and you just showed verbal abuse. I mean, that is clearly verbal abuse. So I don't think he's out of the woods on any of this, but certainly not on the second one, which is general abuse, not sexual violence.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I think that it's the first one or it's none of them, really. I think there's that kind of evidence of some level of abuse, maybe going both ways. Okay, so let's listen to some of Depp's cross-examination from Mr. Rottenborn, and this relates to those really bad texts that were out there. Let's watch.
And when it says Steve here, Mr. Depp, that's what Ms. Heard referred to you as, correct?
Yes.
And you referred to her as Slim, right?
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
And so you text her rears, tears, beers, shears, sapphires, leers, jeers, queers, hears, mouseketeers, ears. I can go all night, DJ MaxiPad. The old vintage you went for, dumb. Did I read that right?
I was signing off as dumb.
And then below that, you write, don't call me again and do not expect anything from me. Do you see that?
I do see that.
Did I read that right?
You really did.
Let's go to the next page, please. Eat salad with your equine, AD, bovine yerps. And thanks for the support. Have a great shoot. You sicken me. Leave me be, Officer Squarehead. Your display of guilt and matronliness as a lesbian camp counselor was plenty. Your future is on display. Best of luck.
Best if luck.
Thank you for the correction. Best if luck.
You're welcome.
And thanks for the tunes. Bye, JD. Don't call again. I will begin to feel embarrassed for you. Go away, coach. Hup. Done. Did I read that right?
No. Go away, coach. Done. Hup. Done.
Thank you. Otherwise, did I read that right?
Sure.
You agree that referring to Amber as a lesbian camp counselor is a highly offensive reference to make, correct?
What's the date here? 2013. It wasn't as considered as egregious. There was a bit more understanding about terms. Amber also called herself a lesbian camp counselor many times. So I don't think I'm the first to say that.
You'd agree that there's nothing appropriate about referring to your girlfriend or fiance as that in those disparaging terms in that text, correct?
Objection compound.
All right, sustained comment.
You'd agree that you meant the terms in your text as an insult because you didn't like the fact that she was disapproving of your alcohol and drug habits.
Objection
Isn't that right?
compound.
Sustained compound question.
There was nothing.
No, you don't have
all-
to answer that, sir. That's
Sorry.
right. Next question.
Well, if nothing else, you get the sense that Johnny Depp is quite the writer. I don't know how much of that's driven by substances or just a creative imagination, but it had to be an interesting relationship on that level alone. Jeff Lax, when you're hearing these texts, and these were not the worst of the texts that were back and forth between these folks, what's your takeaway? Is this just a guy being annoyed, playful, evil? Where does it fall?
You know, Michael, there's a show on TV that my wife and I are binging on together called Made, and it's about this woman who is made homeless by her husband, who basically throws her out of the house, doesn't touch her, but punches a wall near her, very similar to what Johnny Depp does. She ends up at an abuse facility, and she says, I'm not abused, and the worker there says to her, he punched a wall right next to your face, right? He was screaming at you the whole time, right? And she said the next time it may not be just words. This is physical violence that tends to lead to, verbal violence, and physical object violence tends to lead to violence against the women in many cases. And so that kind of abuse, the verbal abuse, has to be taken very seriously. And I think the jury will, based on their question, you see they're separating it. And I think they are taking it seriously. And so I don't think, a lot of people think this has gone well for Johnny Depp. I always thought this part of it was a real problem for him because you hear him being abusive.
And we know that he has certainly abused inanimate objects plenty, and so to make the leap you mentioned, probably not a huge leap. The real question becomes for this jury, is there enough evidence and corroborative evidence to support Amber Heard's testimony of some sort of physical violence? Let's take a break, guys. Stay where you are. When we come back, we'll have more from the Depp Heard testimony as it unfolded over the last 6 weeks. The jury into the 8+ hour now of their deliberations. We're going to find out, I would imagine, in the next half hour or so, whether it will continue into tomorrow or if they're making enough progress. They tell the judge, hey, we want to bang this out tonight. We'll see. Stay where you are. Coming right back. continuing verdict watch here at the Law and Crime Network. The jury now at about 8.5 hours looking into the fate of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard and her counterclaim against Johnny Depp. We did see just a bit ago some of Johnny Depp's cross-examination, right? So let's take a look at Amber Heard. How did she do? You know, Camille Vasquez has been quite the star of the Depp team. Let's see how she started off her cross-examination of Amber Heard.
Mr. Depp hasn't looked at you once this entire trial, has he?
Not that I've noticed, no.
You've looked at him, though, many times, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
You know exactly why Mr. Depp won't look back at you, don't you?
I do.
He promised you you would never see his eyes again. Isn't that true?
I don't recall if he said that.
One of the last times you ever saw Mr. Depp was when you met him in San Francisco in July of 2016, right?
That was the second to last time I saw him, yes.
And this was after you had publicly accused him of domestic violence.
I got my restraining order before that, yes. Mm-hmm.
And this is after you had obtained the domestic violence restraining order against him.
That's correct.
I don't understand. Is this what you want?
No. Oh, no, a hug will save it all. All this, everything we just...
I just wanted to touch you.
Really? After all this you just said?
I just wanted to give
After
you
all
a
this
hug.
Yes, me up, you want to touch me?
Please stop me. Please stop. Please, I just wanted to hug you and say bye. I didn't want to take it back.
We did that last night. It's fine. That was good enough. No, because I'm nothing to you, and I will always be nothing to you.
Calm.
What? You're not my shrink. No, you're in fucking heart. No, we'll never see each other again. You won't don't take my glasses off. You don't like looking at not my eyes? You will not see my eyes again.
That's you and Mr. Depp in that recording.
That is.
And this is from when you and Mr. Depp met in San Francisco in July of 2016, right?
Yes, that's what it sounds like. That was in the hotel. We met once after that as well.
This is after you publicly accused him of domestic abuse.
Yes, and got my TRO.
Yeah. And he tells you you will not see my eyes again, doesn't he?
Yes, he does in that recording.
And he kept that promise, hasn't he?
As far as I know, he cannot look at me.
He won't look at you, right, Ms. Heard?
He can't.
That is, we're not supposed to be hearing all this stuff. You know, this is such private, dramatic stuff. And Johnny Depp, it just seems in character when he tells somebody, you will not see my eyes again. It's just, it's creepy. It's kind of haunting. Mitra, you know, these are very private moments, private conversations. You know, we've all had some version of these, and you know, to have them paraded out there, you know, it's uncomfortable. I don't know how jury members feel about this, but now they've got to wrestle with this uncomfortable stuff and come up with a decision. How tough is that?
Yeah, I think, you know, they're probably feeling all the things that we're feeling, but they've been sitting in their seats for hours on end for 6 weeks now. So I imagine that so much of it is uncomfortable, and that much more uncomfortable being in the room with these two people who have this history, as they have to hear themselves in not their finest moments, and sort of the tension that must be in that courtroom as a result of that. So I agree, more than we ever need to hear from any couple ever. People say and do things that they don't mean and that they're not proud of. And it's really unfortunate that it's all being, you know, heard and sort of dragged through the courts and also seen by the public.
Yeah. Jeff, about 30 seconds. What do you think is the biggest issue for this jury to wrestle with? Is it really just as simple as, I believe her, I believe him?
I think the hardest part is damages, because they may find technically that there was defamation, but he doesn't deserve anything. So it wouldn't shock me if he actually wins the lawsuit and gets $1. That would not shock me. So I think the damages, what damages really are there? Because he's not a likable character here. And I don't think he has real damages.
And that may be just fine with Johnny Depp, because he has said more than once from the stand that he's there doing this to just tell his story. So, you know, I think he'd be satisfied with $1, maybe less. Let's take a break, guys. Stay right where you are. Some good stuff. I appreciate the analysis. We're going to continue to watch this case unfold as we are in verdict watch, pushing 9 hours now. So, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, who will emerge victorious? We'll be right back.
How does it start?
Okay, stand by, guys. Okay, so still in verdict watch in the defamation case, Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, and the opposite. What normally happens, this time of day, and this is true in most courthouses during deliberations, there's some communication between courthouse staff, maybe even the judge, and the deliberating jury members to give them a sense of where they are in the process. And the court may ask, would you like some more time tonight? Do you think you're going to make enough progress to come to a decision? Or do we wrap it up at a reasonable time and then you come back and get back at it in the morning? I think we're getting to the point where we're about to learn about that decision-making point. But while we wait for that, let's look now. This is kind of like a best of. If you looked up some of the characters, it looks like Central Casting had a pipeline to this trial. And one of the most interesting witnesses, I think we can agree, is Isaac Baruch, who testified. He lived rent-free as a buddy of Johnny Depp in one of his many penthouse apartments. And he talked about Amber Heard's appearance. Remember this date, May. There was a 2016 event in the penthouse fight incident. Here's his testimony.
Did you have a good look at her face during that conversation?
Yes, this room. This room. It's completely lit. That it's a spot, and there's a camera taking. Cameras always on. The security camera, and always, and so it's got good lighting and stuff. Because this is a spot where if you use your fob key to go into the building, well, the door takes a long time to, it's one of those things with the pressure thing that the door just doesn't close shut. It takes a while for it to close. Someone could be in the garage who's not supposed to be in the garage, run and hold the door open. And then they get into the apartment building, and then who knows, maybe somebody gets ripped off. But so it's well lit for security reasons, and that there's a camera there. It's taking pictures, doing what the camera does.
Was Ms. Heard wearing makeup during that discussion?
Neither of them looked like they were wearing makeup at all. Whitney had this hat on that it was a fun hat or whatever, and that no makeup. I don't even know Whitney to be a makeup person, and that Amber, no, she looked like she was just natural Amber. It's all just as always, no makeup.
Did you notice any marks on Ms. Heard's face?
No.
Did you notice any swelling?
No swelling. There's nothing. There's no swelling, no bruising, no redness, no cuts, I don't even, nothing.
You get the feeling if you ask Mr. Baruch what time it is, he'll tell you how to build a watch. He's got a lot to say. Mitra Ahurian is still here with us. She is an entertainment lawyer in Beverly Hills, and of course Jeff Lax, our law professor in New York. Thank you both for sticking around here. This guy, he's been living rent-free. I probably called him a freeloader at some point, but he was obviously a friend of Johnny Depp. Mitra, does that, so color his testimony to be totally discounted or just shaved a bit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is, he's indebted to Johnny Depp. I think there's no way sort of around that, coming to that conclusion. Johnny Depp changed his life. He basically became what we call a patron of the arts, took him in, set him up in a really nice penthouse that's much nicer than most people live in, and he had a good life. But I think what redeemed him a little bit was the way he described his affection for Amber, and the fact that it seemed that they all had a nice relationship, and that he did know her for years, and he did come to love her. And I think that the moment that he got emotional over the fact that this is even happening between two people that he cares about, and how he just wants them to move on, I think that sort of redeemed him a little bit, because although he may be indebted, it sounds like he cared about both of these people.
So, Jeff, one thing I did like about his testimony was it was really the first incident that we had a witness talk about where he could give his observations of Amber Heard being injured or wearing makeup to cover an injury. So I think that was very important foundational material. I'm not sure we knew what was to come at that point. It would be so over the top in terms of the photos and the makeup. But that to me sounded legit, and he was, making firsthand observations.
Definitely. It was, we've talked about witnesses that are not prepared well. That was clearly a witness that was very well prepared. Depp's lawyer certainly did a good job. He was very colorful in terms of why everything was so clear to him. All of this goes to the believability of Amber Heard. And by the way, I got a very angry email during the commercial break from someone who says, I can't believe you're saying that might win anything. You can't believe anything she says. But the problem is, even if you don't believe anything she says, you don't need to for this case, because there's audio. There's audio of him being verbally abusive. I keep going back to that, regardless of what she covered up or didn't cover up. Maybe not physical. Again, I want to clarify, but verbal, we all hear that, and that should be disturbing, I think, to enough people, the verbal abuse, just to me.
Yeah, and we talked about this early on, that seemed to be the dividing line, at least in my analysis, that abuse, yes, emotional, verbal, but physical, where's that evidence? And I think the jury seems to have latched onto that distinction already with their one and only question so far. So how did Isaac Baruch do on cross-examination? Let's watch.
And for Johnny, his family has been completely wrecked by all of this stuff, and it's not fair. It's not right what she did and what happened for so many people to get affected from this. It's insane.
And Mr. Baruch,
how this happened.
And Mr. Baruch, if in fact she's telling the truth, and if in fact Mr. Depp, who has engaged in enormous rage and domestic abuse and violence of Amber over a period of time that you wouldn't know about, then maybe it's time for him to take responsibility, don't you think?
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the objection?
Speculation. Lack of foundation, relevance.
Speculation.
He just went off on this rant and rave about assuming that she's...
You asked a question. So
I didn't ask a question that launched that.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay,
right, next
you don't...
question.
I'll ask this.
Okay.
Mr. Baruch, you don't know whether Mr. Depp has committed domestic violence of Amber Heard, do you?
I never witnessed. I never saw or witnessed whatever type of claim that is being said, ever. Okay. I've never seen him be violent since teenagers from first meeting.
I didn't ask you that. I said you don't know whether he has committed domestic violence or abuse on Amber Heard. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. I did not witness any physical violence.
But you have seen Mr. Depp use drugs as well as drink and be drunk, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So on that cross, probably the best answer given by Mr. Baruch is that I've never seen any physical violence, and he is a guy that has spent a lot of time with the couple. So, Jeff, what do you think about that? I want your opinion, too, on how that back and forth played out between the court, the attorneys, on the objection over the speculation of what this witness might have understood to happen. Obviously no foundation for that. But I think I got kind of two questions brewing here. One is this back and forth with the attorneys that made it look like neither of them were quite sure what they were trying to get out of this witness or prevent. And then the witness's testimony in itself as it relates to what he did not see.
That's what happens when you have a witness with a personality. Sometimes they go off on a little bit of a tangent, and both sides get an answer that they were not expecting. Certainly, even Depp's team wasn't expecting that response, and certainly Heard's team was not expecting it, but that's what happens. The judge sustained the objection, which was, I think, proper. It was a little bit confusing for a moment there, but it was proper because he's there as a fact witness. He's there to answer one question. Did he see evidence of abuse? And I think in the end he clarified no.
Yeah, and I think he made it very clear he'd never seen it. So the question then, Mitra, is, you're not with them 24 hours a day, correct? You're not with them 7 days a week, right? You're not with them every day of the year. You certainly can't claim to know everything that's ever happened between this couple.
Sure, and that question can be asked of anyone that gets on the stand. These witnesses are not there to say that it didn't happen. They're there to say it didn't happen in their presence, and they don't believe that it happened. This is somebody who was around them often, that presumably if there was some damage, injury, noises, any of the results of that he, odds are he would have seen something over the years. And I think that's where sort of the strength of his testimony lies. But of course, the question is always going to be, well, you can't say for sure that it didn't happen, right? And that's where you get into sort of the speculative nature of the question.
Right, and he was in a role that if anybody might have seen or heard something, maybe he was. So I think he was a very important witness and also very entertaining, which we appreciate. Let's take a break here, guys. Stay right where you are. We're going to get back into more of the testimony from the Depp Depp trial as the jury continues to deliberate, very rapidly approaching their 9th hour. We'll be right back after this. Hey, welcome back to the afternoon session. I'm Michael Bryant. Well, the jury at it for 9 hours now as they are deliberating two different actions being played out in front of them over the last 6 weeks. Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp. And near the end of Johnny Depp's direct examination, this guy knows how to turn a phrase. And I think this is the part of his testimony where he says something like nothing less than everything when he was asked what he's lost. Anyway, fascinating testimony. Everything he says he has lost due to the accusations of Amber Heard. Let's watch.
What, to your understanding, is the status of Pirates 6?
At this point?
Yes.
I believe it's in dangle mode.
Mr. Depp, have you ever physically assaulted Miss Heard?
Never.
Have you ever sexually assaulted Miss Heard?
Never. Certainly not.
What have you lost as a result of Miss Heard making these allegations against you?
Nothing less than everything. Nothing less than everything. When the allegations were made, when the allegations were rapidly circling the globe, telling people that I was a drunken, cocaine-fueled menace who beat women suddenly in my 50s. It's over. You know, you're done. So, what did it do to me? What effect did it have on me? I'll put it to you this way. No matter the outcome of this trial, the second the allegations were made against me, the accusations, the second that more and more of these things, as I said, metastasized and turned into fodder for the media, once that happens, or once that happened, I lost then. I lost because that is not a thing that anyone is gonna just put on your back for a short period of time. I will live with that for the rest of my life because of the allegations and because it was such a high-profile case. So I lost then, no matter the outcome of this trial. I'll carry that for the rest of my days. And it never had to be that way. It never had to happen. And I don't quite understand why it did in the way that it did.
So, nothing less than everything. What have you lost here? Let me ask Mitra Hurian, entertainment lawyer, is it just too much? Is it just too melodramatic? Is it just too big a performance? Or is it believable and that's just Johnny Depp's way of saying things?
I think this is definitely, his language and the way he speaks. And the way he speaks is sort of dramatic and poetic, and he has sort of this artist in him, right? He's a musician, he's an actor, and he's, the arts tend to be a bit more flowery and dramatic than the way you and I, for example, speak. And so I think that this was sort of the first taste of this moment. I think particularly that one, drop the quote right there and everyone remembers it moment was the first of many moments where, we see throughout the course of the trial that he uses language that's very different than the language that you and I might use. And you come to understand that, and you come to understand what he means by some of what appears to be, kind of vague expressions, but you come to kind of understand his language. So I think it's just the way he is. It's his nature.
Yeah, if you're just sitting down having a cocktail with him, if he still does that, maybe you find out that it is different, but it seems like it's just him. So let's see how Benjamin Rottenborn handled the cross-examination, specifically on the issue of damages. The Pirates of the Caribbean 6 issue, that was really the crux of his claim for $50 million. We know that he would make at least $50 million if he signed on to do another movie. Let's watch.
Now, you're claiming that due to Amber's allegations of abuse, you can't be in Pirates 6, correct?
I'm saying that after everything had basically hit its media targets and the hit pieces kept coming, it would be, I would be a real simpleton to not think that there was an effect on my career based on Ms. Heard's words, whether they mention my name or not.
You became aware prior to the publication of this op-ed that you were likely out for Pirate 6, that Disney was considering dropping or dramatically shrinking your role, correct?
No.
And you aren't aware, you said Pirate 6 in your view is dangling. You're not aware of if or when Pirate 6 will be made, correct?
No, sir. No.
And the fact is, Mr. Depp, if Disney came to you with $300 million and a million alpacas, nothing on this earth would get you to go back and work with Disney on a Pirates of the Caribbean film, correct?
That is true, Mr. Rottenborn.
And you couldn't identify a single movie that you did between the divorce and the op-ed in response to Ms. Meyer's questions just now. You said there was a small tour of your band between that, but you couldn't identify a single movie that you did in the year or two prior to the op-ed, correct?
I have to tell you that when I'm working on a film, I do my work, and when I'm wrapped on that film, I've done my work and I move on to the next. So I haven't seen the majority of my films. I've seen a few only if I had to, but so it doesn't come right away to my head. Films are not the first thing that I think about.
So, damages, we've talked a little bit about. We talked, last week about this whole concept of presumed damages, because defamation per se, which is really an allegation of some criminal conduct, in this case physical abuse of someone, triggers presumed damages. And there is a specific jury instruction that they got that says you don't have to see the actual damages. They're presumed. But Jeff Lax, there's a follow-up instruction that basically says here's how you calculate actual damages. Seems to me a little conflicting and maybe confusing, and I don't know, maybe reversible if they don't quite get it right.
It's very interesting. I think in that scene that you just played, that testimony with the attorney, you see that the money is very important to Amber Heard. She doesn't just want to win; she can't afford to lose, and that's why her lawyers are going after. Do you have damages? That's why it's such a big deal to their side, because even if he did. That testimony, that back and forth was, even if you win, Mr. Depp, how have you been harmed? And that goes to your question about actual damages. Where are your actual damages? Because everybody understands if you're falsely accused of sexual assault, what could be worse than that to somebody's reputation? Everyone understands why that's defamation per se, as you alluded to. However, you see that the Heard side, to them, the money matters a lot because she simply can't afford to pay even if she loses. I think that's a good job by her lawyer setting up, even if our client loses, look, there were no actual damages.
Yeah, that is very interesting, because it could be a hollow victory, but again, Mitra, maybe Johnny Depp could care less about the money.
I think that, that's sort of consistent with what he said, and what we're sort of observing is he's caring far more about the court of public opinion. He cares far more about clearing his name. Even the very first pleadings that he filed, the complaint stated that this is not about the money, this is about him clearing his name. And, he's been using the courts as sort of his public platform to try and do that.
I've just heard through my sources that they're done for the day without reaching a verdict. So the jury has been thanked and excused for the day. They'll be back at it at 9 a.m. So we're going to call it a day ourselves here. Thanks so much. I'm going to thank and excuse Mitra Ahurian from Beverly Hills, an entertainment lawyer there, and Jeff Lax, our law professor from New York. Thank you both for being here. Appreciate it. And I know we will talk again. Have a great evening, guys.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, so you heard it. They're done for the day. They'll be back at it 9 a.m. to begin their 10th hour of deliberation. I'm Michael Bryant. Thanks for joining us here on the Law and Crime Network. Try to do the right thing. And if you get a chance, run over to the YouTube channel. You can see some of that Catherine Magbenois case. She was found guilty. Crazy case. Okay, have yourself a great evening. See you next time right here on Law and Crime.